We call it the solar system.
We
Because everything in it is centered around the sun. And so
We call it the solar system because everything in it is centered around the sun.
solar means something to do with the sun. The sun is a star, just like many of the stars.
Means something to do with the sun. The sun is a star, just like many of the stars
that you can see in the night sky, just many times closer to us. Still,
you can see in the night sky just many times closer to us. Still, the
sun is very, very far away from the earth.
The sun is very far away from the earth.
Almost 93 million miles away.
Almost 93 million miles away.
Why it looks so small.
That's why it looks so small.
Even though it's the
biggest object in the solar system. In fact, the sun makes up more.
Biggest object in the solar system. In fact, the sun makes the earth, and if it were a giant jar, the sun is so big.
The sun is so big that it's more than 100 times wider than the earth, and if it were
that is more than 100 times wider than the earth, and if it were a giant jar, you could
fit it more than 1 million earths into it.
Fit more than 1 million earths into it. More than that, the sun is
what holds the solar system together. Its massive gravity
is what holds the solar system together. Its massive gravity is what keeps the earth.
It's what keeps the earth and all the other planets circling around it instead of drifting.
All the other planets circling around it instead of drifting off into space. The sun is also what allows
us to live on Earth. Without the sun, there would be
allows us to live on Earth. Without the sun, there would be no heat. There would be no light. Plants could not grow. Water would freeze.
Heat. There would be no light. Plants could not grow. Water would freeze.
Nothing could survive.
And nothing could survive.
The sun gives us heat and light because it is always burning.
The sun gives us heat and light because it is always burning.
It is a giant ball of gas.
It is a giant ball of gas.
Mostly hydrogen and helium. And it burns at millions of degrees in its center. Let's leave the sun now.
To explore the planets.
As we move away from the
sun, the first planet we could encounter is Mercury.
The first planet we will encounter is Mercury. Mercury is the smallest planet in the solar system.
Mercury is the smallest planet in the solar system, much smaller than Earth, and of only 5 planets.
Much smaller than Earth, and one of only 5 planets you can see from Earth using nothing but
your eyes.
Your eyes. Of course, it won't look much like a planet. A planet looks more like a bright star, and many nights you can see it close to the horizon near sunrise. Many nights you can see
it looks more like a bright star, and many nights you can see it close
to the horizon.
Near sunrise and sunset.
Mercury is a lot like our
moon. It's small and has a rocky surface with craters on it.
Moon. It's small and has a rocky surface with craters on it. It has no moon of its own.
It has no moon of its own and no air to breathe. You probably wouldn't enjoy a visit to Mercury.
And no air to breathe. You probably wouldn't enjoy a visit to Mercury, since temperatures are boiling
hot in the sun and freezing cold in the shade.
Hot in the sun and freezing cold in the shade. Something interesting about Mercury
is that it is the fastest planet to go around the sun.
Is that it is the fastest planet to go around the sun. It only takes
88 days.
8 days. Next is Venus.
Next is Venus, the second planet. Some people call Venus Earth's sister because
the second planet. Some people call Venus Earth's sister because the two planets are very
close in size and gravity, but they are very different on the surface.
Close in size and gravity, but they are very different on the surface. First of all, it is very hot.
Venus is the hottest planet in the solar system.
Venus is the hottest planet in the solar system. It's not as close to the sun as
Mercury, but its thick atmosphere of carbon dioxide helps it to trap
Mercury, but its thick atmosphere of carbon dioxide helps it to trap the heat and
stay warmer than its neighbor. It has thick atmosphere, but it is not
warmer than its neighbor. It has a thick atmosphere, but it is not one you could breathe.
But it's not a one you could breathe. It is mostly made of carbon dioxide, and there are clouds of sulfuric acid.
It is mostly made of carbon dioxide, and there are clouds of sulfuric acid. Venus might not be fun to visit.
But it's beautiful to look at. It is the second brightest.
But it is beautiful to look at. It is the second brightest object in the night sky.
The only thing brighter is the moon. If you are looking at a sunrise,
the only thing brighter is the moon. If you are looking at a sunrise or a sunset,
and suddenly notice what looks like a very bright star,
you are probably looking at Venus. After Venus comes Earth, the third
planet from the sun. Of course, you know all about
planet from the sun. Of course, you know all about Earth because
that's the planet where we live. Earth is what's called a Goldilocks.
That's the planet where we live. Earth is what's called a Goldilocks planet because it's
not too hot and not too cold. It's just right, as far as we know.
Not too hot and not too cold. It is just right. As far as we know, Earth is
the only planet to have living things.
The only planet to have living things. Let's leave Earth again for a moment.
So, and visit Mars, the fourth planet.
And visit Mars, the fourth planet from the sun. Mars is known as the red planet because iron oxide.
Mars is known as the red planet because iron oxide, a material like rust in the soil,
gives it a reddish color.
Mars is smaller than Venus and the Earth, but larger than
but larger than Mercury.
It is cold and rocky, with a thin atmosphere made of carbon dioxide and oxygen.
It's cold and rocky, with a thin atmosphere made of carbon dioxide and oxygen. There is water ice on Mars. Scientists are very interested
in Mars because they think that people could live there.
In Mars because they think that people could live there with the help of
some special equipment. Rockets and probes have already been sent there.
Special equipment. Rockets and probes have already been sent there to gain more
information about the planet. Right now, there are 2 special robots exploring
information about the planet. Right now, there are 2 special robots exploring the surface of Mars, sending information back
the surface of Mars, sending information back to
Earth. Mars is the first planet we've
visited today besides Earth to have its own moons.
It has 2.
Also, they are not big and round like our moon. Mars' moons are small and irregular.
Although they are not big and round like our moon, Mars's moons are small and irregular.